Yeah, hi everyone, Jason here, Robot Lawn Mowers Australia. Today we're going to do an installation video on the Segway Navimow X3 Series. This particular machine we have here is an X315 model, which is a 1500 square metre model. There's also an X330 model, which is a 3000 square metre model, an X350, which is a 5000, and an X390, which is a 10,000 square metre model. So there's 4 models in the range, anywhere from 1500 square metres right through to 10,000 square metres. Seriously capable machine, and we'll go through other features and things in other videos and other reviews. Today is going to be simply about doing a setup video on my property here. We'll set up all the areas, show you all the basic features of getting signed up to the app, getting it connected to the internet, getting your firmware updates done, and doing your first lot of mapping and scheduling and things like that. So just the basic setup and the things we come across as we do that. So let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, get in your phone and get your app up and running. So basically you just want to go into your Apple Store or your Android store, go into the store and you're going to search for Segway Navimow. Like such. That's going to bring up a few options, and in my particular case here, it's come up there with just the Navimow app in the front there. You're going to download that app. Mine obviously just says open because I already have the app on my phone. You're going to go in there and you're going to press open or download that app and get it downloaded onto your phone. So you're going to open the app up and it's going to open up to a screen like such where you're going to sign up your account or log into an existing account. So if you already have a Segway from one of the previous models, then you can just add it to your existing account. So you're just going to log in. If you're a new user, then you actually want to go in here and press create account, and you want to go through and actually go through the steps details. Put in your email address and your password that you want to have in there, and then press the send button for a verification code, and it will send that verification code to the email that you put in. It'll give you that code, you put that code in, and then it will actually set you up an account, and that will end up being back onto this page again, where you can then actually just log into the account. So we go in here, that's actually my account there across the top there. I'll put my password in. We're going to press that we agree to the terms and conditions of everything, and then we're going to press login, and it's going to log you into the app, and hopefully you make it as easy as I just did then. The app's going to ask, my phone's going to ask me if I want to save the password. I'm going to say not now for mine because this is only a temporary account. But you're going to end up in a screen like such where it's going to ask you to add a device. If you are an existing user, it'll show you what's there, and then you'll actually go into the top left-hand corner at the top there, and you'll go into device management here, which is not here at the moment because we only have one machine. So I might touch on that after we've got this machine connected for those people that have already got one connected to their account. We're going to go in here and press add device, and it's going to ask us what type of a device we want to add, and I'm going to say we're going to put an X3 series in. We're going to say, is the mower turned on? So no, it's not, so let's just turn the mower on. Once the mower comes on, you can see the top screen of these guys is fantastic, by the way. So you really can see quite clearly what's happening on the top of the mower. Once that's turned on, we can press yes, the mower is powered on, and then it's going to go search for it. It's found it. There's the serial number for the robot. So we'll just give it a few more seconds here for the top screen. It's just got a little hourglass on the top there at the moment. So we'll wait for it to fire up properly, and then we'll connect to it. Okay, so now it's finished firing up. Let's connect to it again.
Connected.
Robot says connected. And on the screen, it'll actually tell you to press the OK button, which is the center button on here on the robot. Press the OK button, and then the app will show you that it's been fully connected. Press OK, and we now have the robot connected. It's going to automatically detect where you are in the world, set your time zone up. If it's incorrect, by all means change it. But it's come up and said that we're +10 GMT, which is correct for Brisbane. We're in Australia, and auto daylight savings time doesn't really affect me here because we don't have daylight savings. But if you're in Sydney or Victoria, or I think Adelaide still does have it, doesn't it? But if you have daylight savings time, then you can click the auto daylight savings time, and it will automatically correct when those times come in and out. Press OK. It's going to ask you to reset the PIN number. So put the PIN into what you want it to be. Then comes through and wants to connect to your Wi-Fi network. Now it's automatically going to select the same Wi-Fi network that your phone is connected to. But you want that to be a 2.4 gigahertz signal so you can get the range required from your router to the robot. If it's a 5 gigahertz signal, I actually don't know whether these guys will actually connect to a 5 gigahertz yet or not. Most robot mowers will not connect to a 5 gigahertz signal. And so I suggest you do have a 2.4 gigahertz signal, even if you have to set up your own set up a separate Wi-Fi connection in your router for that. It's well worth doing it for the 2.4 gigahertz signal. We're going to put our password in for our network. Press connect. It's going to go and connect the robot to the network. And it's connected successfully. Next thing on the app comes through, it's going to ask if you want to connect to 4G. Now, on that note, I'm not sure of the time periods to tell you the truth. I should know this, but I don't at this off the top of my head. But you get free 4G connection with the robot for a period of time, and then after that time you'll have to pay a yearly subscription for the 4G connection. It's not a necessary thing because it will operate exactly the same way through your Wi-Fi. But if the robot is picked up or stolen from your property, then the 4G comes into its own because you can still connect and track the robot after it leaves your Wi-Fi connection. So on your app there, it'll just ask you to activate it. So you just press activate down the bottom. It'll go through and it will activate, and it will also tell you what once we're in there, it'll tell you what the expiry date is on the 4G. The language, yes, we want to go for English, thank you. And everything's good, activate, press done. And it now goes through the actual setup process, making sure that you have all required to install the robot. If you haven't already, watch the unboxing video I did previously on this a few months back. But everything on the screen there is what you actually receive in the box. Obviously the charging station, the robot, there's a 10-meter extension cable for the power supply for the actual robot itself, the RTK antenna for the top of the pole for the antenna, the actual antenna that goes, the radio signal antenna that goes into the antenna. I have a secondary power supply here for the RTK antenna, but that does not come in the box. That's an optional extra so that you can plug the antenna in separate to plugging in the robot, and the pole and everything here behind me. So that's everything that comes in the box, plus a few straps and things and pegs for pegging down the charging station and things like that. So we'll cut the video there, and I'll go and we'll press start in a second, and we'll start doing the physical installation. Okay, so I've got everything laid out of what we need here out in the sun. It's a rather warm day today as well here in Brisbane. So back onto the app there, let's just step through it rather than I'll tell you what order to do things. We'll let the app tell us what to do because they generally do so. Hit the start button and it's going to talk about the primary antenna and the secondary antennas. So primary antenna is all we're going to talk about today. I'm going to do a whole separate video on secondary antennas for Segway, so I won't talk about it today, but you can install a second antenna to get an additional distance between the charging station and the robot where it's going to work. So first antenna, so we're going to scroll down here and we're just going to say next. Do you have a signal enhancement antenna? We're going to say no, we do not. And it's going to say antenna location and telling you exactly where you can and can't put that antenna. Now, like I always say, guys, if you've watched any of my other videos, installation point of that antenna is the most critical thing you can possibly do when installing an RTK robot, when it's navigated by RTK. Even if it does have camera redundancy like the Segway does and some of the other brands do, that antenna placement is still the most critical thing that you can do when installing a robot. So on the app here you can see it's telling you basically to put it up on top of your house or put it right out in the open. It's saying greater than 2 meters from any sort of obstruction sort of thing. So you could put it on a pole here, on the lawn here, over there sort of thing. It really will work okay. You can see my H series one here behind me. It actually works okay there, believe it or not. It's not ideal, but it does work okay. I really do implore anyone who permanently installs their robot just to put it up on the eave of the house. Put it up high, get it out of the way. It's never going to get bumped, it's never going to get moved. Just put it up. If you use the pole, it needs to be in a location where you really just don't use that space and no one's going near it. No balls are going to hit the antenna. If that antenna moves, you're going to end up having to remap your map. So put the antenna in a really good location, preferably up on the roof. I'm going to install it actually up against the fence here. So we'll go through here and we're going to say next. Now it's talking about the charging station location, where we can actually put the charging station in a location. And again, it's saying you need to be greater than 2 meters away from any structure. Now, this is where I tend to put on my practical hat. Putting the charging station 2 meters away from a fence or where it's going to go is fairly impractical in most cases. It is what should be done. If you do have issues with positioning systems and not getting back to the charger properly or not leaving the charger properly, then the location of the charger is generally the issue. I do not have any problems with any robot so far installing them back against this fence here like this. I don't have any problems at all with that. I've never had problems with it. There's plenty of side above here. Most of our customers, it's probably one of the most asked questions we actually get is, can I put the charging station under my house or in my garage or whatever it might be? And look, the simple answer is no, you can't. But you can push the boundaries a bit. And what we typically recommend to people is that as long as you are prepared to remap things and move charging stations and trial and error the installation, then if you want to put the charging station right up against the house under the eave or something like that, then put it there. Test it, see how it actually goes for a week. If you have any issues, then move it. But just be prepared that you may have to move it, that's all. But yeah, as per the recommendations, they should be 2 meters away from any structure, tree, house, fence, all that sort of thing. It should stay 2 meters away from it. It's not exactly the most practical thing to say. So we're going to go next. Okay, now it's telling us how to install the antenna, telling us to put the little radio signal antenna in, put it inside its plastic holder and then attach it to the pole and the spike and everything else. So I'm going to do that right now. So when we talk about this, we're talking about the RTK antenna here like this, and we're talking about putting this antenna, screw that in there, and then we're just going to click this over the top like such, and then that's it. So it gets the whole thing installed. Put those little clips in there to make sure it doesn't have any pressure on there, and then that's good to go. This then just clips onto the pole, clicks into place, and how I'm actually going to install this, I'm going to actually install it like such. I might put it back over this side. And then I'm just going to strap that up, guys. To be clear here, this installation is temporary. It's not a permanent installation. I'm just putting that for the purpose of this video and to get it up nice and high out of the way. Okay, back to our phone. So we put all that together. We've effectively put it in the ground. We haven't. We've actually put it on the side there, and it's now telling us to connect it into the charging station. Now, we can either, this is where I had before, is that you can purchase a secondary power supply like this one, a small one that can plug straight into the antenna and just plug it into a power point separately. So that means you can have the antenna completely separate from the charging station. But in this particular case, because it's next to the charging station, I'll just plug it into the charging station. So into the back of the charging station, there is 2 plugs. Now one has three pins, one has 4 pins. Look at the plug on the antenna, it's a 3-pin plug. It goes into the 3-pin hole, and do it up nice and tight. And that is the antenna installation sorted. Back to our app again. We'll go next. It's actually just gone through what I just told you about having the 3 pins and 4 pins. Now this is the connecting cables to a power supply. So it's showing the once that where you can connect one end of the cable into the charging station, one end into the power point, and then that's it for turning on the charging station, which is this lead. Now, what I'll also mention is this. Segway is one of the only companies, I think, really that do it now, but they give you a 10-meter extension cable for the power supply and the charging station, but you don't actually have to use it. In most cases, you do have to use the extension power supply because the plugs don't allow you to plug this straight into the charging station. But in this particular case, you can actually plug this power supply directly into the charging station, because if the power point's right next to the charging station like mine is here, then I don't need that big long cable. I can just put that little short cable on there, put the charging station into position where we actually want it to be, which is about there. And find the plug and turn it on. Plug it in and turn it on. Okay, back to the phone. Okay, so now it's telling us that we should be seeing a green light on the charging station, which is actually up underneath the back. It's a fairly difficult thing to see, but it's actually in the back. I'll just put this bigger, but it's actually right up in the back there, guys. It's in here. There's a green light there, and that is currently solid green. Okay. Next step, pushing the robot onto the charging station, which is fine. Makes a little bleeping noise. Onto the charging station. Press next. Check the mower has a green light. So yes, we have a green light. Robot's 100% charged as well because I had it charged beforehand. And it says, congratulations, you are ready to start mapping. Now it's telling you after everything that you can actually fix that charging station down. Now I'm not going to fix it down here today because I'm only setting it up temporarily. But you've got your ground screws, ground screw it down like all the other charging stations that have been around for the last 20 years, 30 years actually now. So Husqvarna just celebrated their 30-year anniversary, guys, if anyone knew that. Secure the charging station into position, clean up all your cables, make sure all the cables aren't laying on the ground like they are here, and make everything nice and neat. Go finish. And we are ready to start mapping. So let's get into that. Okay, so once we get back into the app again here, basically it's just telling us that's our home screen now. It's telling us that there's no map because we haven't created one yet, and it really is as simple as just going down the bottom there and just pressing create map. It's then going to tell you that you're now going to map out your area, and it's just giving you a rough introduction of what you're going to do. Basically it's telling you need to clear everything off the lawn because it's going to obstruct the robot from doing its work. Preparations, please cut your lawn. What is it? It just says lower than the maximum cutting height of your model. So these guys I think are 30 to 60 millimeters. They're basically saying it needs to be lower than 60 millimeters, which is fine. Keep within 6 meters of the robot. That's for the Bluetooth connection to stay nice and stable so you don't have any issues. So stay within about 6 meters of the robot. Make sure your batteries are charged too. I think it was going on about there. Then it explains the elements, so boundaries and off-limit islands, channels and vision fence and doodles, which is the artwork in your lawn. So we'll go through all that as we go through anyway. So we go next. Caution. Okay, the lack of light will affect the performance of the camera assisted positioning. And assisted mapping, as camera-based features need light to see accurately capture the environment. So basically what it's saying is that if you're going to install these guys under trees or in areas where there's low GNSS signal, that you shouldn't mow those areas at night. You can tell it to mow at night, it's just saying that it prefers to have really good light to do so. The other thing I have found with this model, as I've actually had this for about over 6 months now, playing and mapping with this guy, is that when you're actually setting up your maps, you do not want to be mapping in low light. You really want nice, good, bright days to do your mapping. So let's go next. It's now just doing an auto check to make sure it's all good. It's saying it's got weak Wi-Fi signal, which is probably about right because it's out right at the very front of my property here, but everything else is fine. Press next, and it should calibrate and come off the docking station like such. Okay, so we press the play button here to hit calibrate, and the robot will reverse off the charging station and turn itself around. So what the robot's really doing here is just making sure that it's the position that it thinks it's got with the RTK correction is actually accurate, and then the wheel motors are calibrating to make sure that the wheel motors are turning correctly and the robot's moving at the same pace as what the wheels are turning. So we're all good there. Now we hit start mapping, and it just goes to the home mapping screen. So right now you sit here, and essentially the only option you've got is to say start mapping. So we hit start mapping, and then it goes through and tells you all about your boundaries and everything else again. So we'll go through this very briefly because this is a tutorial video. So boundaries obviously are the outer boundaries for the robot to actually work in. So these are your delineations of each of your areas. To start mapping with the remote control to the edge of the lawn, once the point is reached where you want to start mapping, that's when you hit starting point on there, and we'll go through that in a second. Erase tracks, so you can actually reverse these robots. That's another good function actually of Segway, and we'll play with that because you can just hit the reverse button and it'll actually just literally erase and drive the robot backwards what you just did, which is quite handy. A standard boundary, so where you are going to basically take the robot onto a hard edge, so a wall or something like that, where it's an absolute delineation of where the robot can actually go to. And then you also have a ride-on boundary where the robot can actually go over the boundary because it can on soft edges or edges like pavers and things like that. Now, I have an opinion on this, and my opinion is that it's really not worth using that feature. If the robot is able to go over the edge, then you're still best off to use a hard edge boundary and actually remote control the robot over the edge. The last one, assisted mapping. So this is the AI mapping feature. We're going to do this in a second, so I'll show you exactly what happens here on this lawn. How to start assisted mapping. Okay, yeah, I'll go through that, but yeah, you hit the auto button and away you go. Keep in mind your phone active, avoid switching to other apps. Yeah, okay, so basically don't close your app while you're in the middle of mowing. Sorry, while you're in the middle of mapping. And it says we're all set, so finally we can get into it. Remote control the robot to the edge of the lawn, then start mapping. Okay, finally we got there, guys. So with the controls, you can now go forward and you can go back with that control on the left-hand side, and then left and right with the control on the right-hand side. Very simple. There's a button at the bottom that says reached starting point. So what you actually want to do is drive the robot to the edge, preferably a hard edge, like maybe this sort of thing where it is here. And basically we're going to start mapping at that point there where it's nice and close to the edge, about 5 or 10 centimeters from the edge, like such. And then we say starting or reached starting point, which just tells the robot that it's actually at a location that it can start mapping. Now, up in the top left-hand corner there, top right-hand corner I should say, there is those edge mowing features. So you can see the first icon on the top right-hand corner, but the first one on the left-hand side shows the robot up against a hard edge. So that's the hard edge feature, which is the one I recommend that you use all the time. The one next to that, and I'll press it now, is the right over the border edge or right on boundary edge, where the robot can sit half on, half off the area. And then the one beside that is the auto feature. So we need to go back to hard boundary edge. And then that one that just popped up there says auto. If I press auto there right now, it comes up and says start assisted mapping. It goes through all the things that you want to abide by. Stay within a 5 meter radius and close to the mower. Basically follow it around. And then we just say start right now down the bottom, and that robot will now control itself. This is not me, guys. The robot's doing everything itself, and it will do a lap around, and it'll try and stay close to the boundary. It doesn't do a terrible job, but you're always going to do a better job yourself. The AI mapping features on all robot mowers is great if you don't want to get too close to the boundaries, but if you want to try and be really close to the boundaries, then I really suggest that you map the areas manually. So I did get really nice and close on that boundary there. So it's now it's riding up on the edge a little bit. Now, being that my edges are not cut here, it's probably not helping the robot at all. If I'd line trimmed that area, it definitely would have done a much better job on this edge, but it is nice and close still. I'd say of all the robots for doing AI mapping, I do think the Segway probably is the best. Definitely does a very good job. Okay, so it's got back to the start again, and you can see now on the actual map itself, we can say done, and then that's our map. So that is a AI generated map. Did it all by itself, I did nothing. So now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to delete that. Just going to select it and hit delete and say yes. And we're going to go yes. Tells me I have to wait till I can delete it, yes, and now it's gone again. Okay, so that just takes you back to the same home screen again, so we're going to hit create map again. It's going to go through, we're going to skip all these intros again because it's just going to go through all the same thing. It's going to do that check again, make sure it's okay. So mower is not in the charge station, push it into the charge station. I really didn't think you had to do that, but apparently you do. It might be because there's just the very first map. Okay, so it's back in the charge station. Let's go recheck. And we're good to go. We go next. Calibrate again. And we'll do a manual map this time. Okay. So we're going to hit start mapping. It's going to do the same thing as I did before. It's going to tell you to go to the edge, which is what I'm going to do. Go to much the same spot. About there. And I'm going to hit starting point reached. And I'm going to stay on the hard edge setting on the top right hand corner there, so it's the first one, and we're just going to very slowly just start mapping and remote control it around the edge, staying relatively close to the edge, usually sort of between, basically around that 10 centimetre mark off the edge, but I tend to push it to about 5 centimetres from the edge at times. You can go really quick if you like, if you've got the control to do so. Very nice and slow, just to make sure we keep nice accurate mapping. When you get onto edges like this where it can actually straddle over the edge, I generally go most of a robot's width off the edge just to make sure that it's going to pick it up completely. Get to the end there and we're going to hit done. So now we've got a manually created map, and that really is going to be far more accurate to the edges than a automatically generated app. So next we want to look at adding more essentially. So we want to add more, and I'm going to add another boundary, so the very first one there, because I'm going to go and do another lawn. So you remote control it to the area, which is fine, so we've got to do that. So let's go. Go into this front lawn, get it to the spot where we want to start, and press reach the starting point.
Mapping start.
Mapping start. Got to the end, we'll hit done. So that's 2 maps done now. So we go add another one, because I'm going to do a third area here, guys. Like I always do on all my review videos, we'll go and do the narrow area. Okay, we'll start about here. Point has reached, and we're mapping start. Okay, so now down here, we start moving into a position where we have a really low GNSS signal, so very low satellite signal. What I recommend you do in these scenarios where you're mapping an area is that you keep a nice steady pace up, and you probably go basically as fast as you can, which means it'll use the wheel encoders and cameras more than it will actually use the RTK positioning to try and build the map. Because if it sits for too long, it'll tend to float around on the map. So we just try and get it done relatively quick and smooth. And keep an eye on the map as it's being mapped to see if it actually starts drifting, which it just did a little bit just then. We just keep a nice, even pace up, and hopefully it doesn't drift too far. And once we get back out into an area where it's got GNSS signal again, it should just come back into position again, and we're pretty good. That wasn't ideal, but it wasn't too bad, so we'll keep that. And we'll just finish this third area off, and then we'll do our channels. Okay, so we get to the end there, we hit done. So that is all 3 areas mapped now, and I'm going to hit save map there now just to make sure it's saved, and we hit save. It'll take a few seconds, and the robot will save that map to its memory.
Map saved.
Map saved. Okay, we're going to continue mapping, and we're going to add more, and we're going to start mapping our channels, which is the middle one. So these are the pathways between area and area. So shown on the map there, on the screen there, shows the little area between the channel between the 2 areas. Basically tells you need to start half a metre inside the boundary, and once you get into the next boundary, it'll automatically stop. You also need, the channels can also go between the boundary and the charging point, the charging station. So there is a spot just off the charging station that you can drive to as well. Okay. So we're going to start just over here. I'm going to turn around, reverse back in, half a metre inside the boundary, and we're going to hit reach starting point.
Mapping starts.
And then we're just going to drive straight across the driveway. it gets into there and we press done. That's it. That's a channel made between those two areas. So now the robot can make its way between those areas. We're going to go and add another channel. And we're going to drive it over here this time. And we're going to go to about there somewhere. Reverse up a little bit and we're going to hit starting point reached. And we're just going to do a little area out here. And into this area here. Done. So that's all the three areas now joined together. I press save map now. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually going to go add more because we're going to do no-go zones now. So over here we've got a tree stump coming out of the ground here. I'm going to add more and I'm going to press off limit island basically. So I'm not sure why they changed it from no-go zone, but off limit island. And then shows you here that this is to delineate things that are inside the mowing area. So if you've got gardens or ponds or tree stumps like I have here, then you can just do a little area around each of the areas. Okay, got it. So we got it again. You drive over to the area. Okay, nice and close to the obstacle. And we're going to hit starting point reached. And we're just going to go very slowly, try and keep that back wheel really close to the area that I want it to be in. Okay, that should be it. And we press done. And now if we zoom in on there, you'll see that there is there's just a very small little no-go zone there that goes around that tree. We're going to hit save map. And then I'm actually going to exit. We're going to say our map's finished this time, say quit mapping. It's going to go back to the home screen. It's going to say camera assisted positioning helps correct map inaccuracies due to poor GPS signaling. So the robot's actually making its way back to the charging station now, guys. So once you hit map saved or finish mapping, it'll automatically go back to the charging station. And it should still going on, yeah, it's doing the charging station, so just getting its positioning. And it will just head home back onto its charger again, ready for mowing. We'll get into setting up the actual mowing areas in the app. Okay guys, I've moved back into the shade because it's actually really damn hot out there, guys. So now that we've got our three maps set up, the charging station's up, the antenna's up, all the maps are zoned, we've got all our channels in, we've got our no-go zone in around the tree stump, everything's done. So the actual mapping itself is sorted. All you want to look at now is that how do we want to mow it? What height do we want to cut the grass at, and what angle do we want the robot to actually mow on? Because it's going to obviously mow in perfectly straight lines every time it goes out. So in the app now you can see you've got your three areas. Now you can set a global height setting. So if you go into our settings in the top left hand corner there, you've got your global height cut, which is currently set to 70 mil, the third one down. If we press on that, we can set that global height, which is so if we don't set a custom height per area, it will default to this setting. So I'm going to set that to 45 millimeters. I usually cut the grass here at about 35 to 40 millimeters. So I'm going to set it to 45, so that's a little bit higher by default. And we'll go back into some of the other settings afterwards. We're going to go into, we can go back out of here if you like. So on the right-hand side, halfway down the screen there, there's a little picture of a map and it's got 128 square meters. Now that 128 square meters is the total of the three areas we just mapped. And you can click on that and that will actually take you straight to the map management. By going in there, it'll take you to map management, which is that screen there. Now if I go back out of there, top left and go back out and go into the menu at the top left hand corner, you can also go into map management there, which is the fifth one down. So map management, go into there and it's exactly the same place. So once we're in there, this is where we can set angles and heights for actual individual areas. So let's pick the first area we mapped, which is the little area with the slope on out the front out here. So you actually select it on the screen. Select it on the screen, it puts a little darker line around the outside so you can see it's been selected, and you press edit. So we're going to edit and it's going to allow us to adjust it, which means we can actually take the robot and actually adjust the boundaries and move the boundaries around. We can actually split it, so you can actually put a line through it and actually split it into two areas. And you can also take two areas and merge them together as well, which really is fantastic. They really are great features. But the next one down there is cutting height. So let's have a look at that to start with. So we're going to go cutting height, and basically it's saying at the moment it's selected as a global setting, which is the 45 millimeters, or do you want to go a custom height? I'm going to say yes, I'd like a custom height, thank you. And I'd like to cut it at 35 millimeters, like such, and hit confirm. So that area on its own now will mow at 35 millimeters, and all the other lawns will currently be 45 millimeters. So, but I'm going to do that again. I'm going to select the area again, hit edit, and go down, and we're also going to look at mowing direction. So the next one down is mowing direction, and you end up with this funny little screen here like this, and it really is a very good screen, actually, to tell you the truth, guys. It's what actually happens with Segway is that every time the robot goes out, it chooses the next mowing angle, or randomly selects the next mowing angle it's going to take. So it'll mow an angle one way, and then the next time it goes out, it'll mow a different way. The next time it goes out, it'll go a different way. And you set those different ways in this screen. The little, hard to see without me being able to actually show you, put a marker on the screen here, but the two little sort of markers and T's that are across there, it's actually in line with the E, with the line that says E. Those two little markers on the outside there, that is the most optimum cutting path, and that's the robot's already worked that out. So mowing on that angle is the fastest it will actually be able to mow. It'll have the least amount of turns and the longest runs. And on the left-hand side there, you've got this angle scale on the side there. You can slide that up and down, and you'll see all those things turn, and that's all the different angles, and you can customize them to go whichever way you like. Then you can also turn them on and off. So if you only want to go two ways, say you just want to cross-cut, you want to go one way this way and then another one 90 degrees the other way, all we do is turn off these other ones like such, like such, and now it'll only mow on the A line and the D line, and you can also move that A and D line to go on the angles you exactly want to mow on. So just say we want to mow exactly up and down. Actually, I might have to select E for that, which means we'll change to E and B, and then we can one be on the optimum path and one being 90 degrees opposite that. Or like I said, if you wish to, you could just go thirds, and we go like that. So it'll have three paths, and now each time it'll change that path. Each time it mows, it'll go to each one of those. So you really can set it to whatever you like. And look, for me on that front lawn, I just usually just leave it. Actually, in the left-hand side, it's got default. Default will take it back to exactly to the normal settings again. And I just leave it like that on the front lawn because it can mow any way it wants to. It's perfectly fine. So I leave it like that. So that is that side there. We're going to go one more time. We're going to go and edit again, because we can also go down and we can rename the area. So I'm going to call this the front yard or front lawn. Hit confirm, and now in all the settings it's going to be called the front lawn instead of just area 1, which is great. And last but not least in there, we'll hit edit again, and the very bottom one is edge mowing. So click on the edge mowing, and this is where you can just choose whether it does a boundary cut or not. Now you can only set it as a one setting per area, so you can't have it go out and do the boundary cut one time but not do it the next time. You can only have it off or on, which is one setting I think Segway probably should actually clean up, is to be able to have a little bit more flexibility around the edge mowing. But realistically, so you've got the mow along the boundary edge, you can turn that off or back on again, and mow around the off limits, off and back on again. You do want it to mow around the edges. I can't think of too many scenarios where you don't want to do edge mowing. So generally you're going to leave those turned on, and it will do one border cut around the edges just to make everything nice and clean and get as close to the edge as possible. Hit confirm, and that is all your area settings. So I'll quickly just go into the other areas. Going to the front lawn there, and I'm going to go edit. We're going to go to cutting height, and again I'm going to set that to 35, confirm, and I'm also going to rename it. Oh, haven't selected it. Select it, edit, and I want to rename that to nature strip, confirm. And then the only one that's actually really important for my lawns, for these 3 lawns that we just mapped, is this little narrow one to the side here, on the side here. So I'm going to select that one. And that's the one that we actually do need to set the custom angles on. So we're going to go edit, we're going to go cutting height, and I'm actually going to set that one at 40 millimeters, just a little bit taller than the other lawns. And then we're going to select it again, we're going to edit, we're going to go mowing direction. And this time, what I'm actually going to do is just leave 2 on, because I don't want it to be going short ways across that lawn. It takes forever to mow the lawn, and because there's a slope on it, it tends to have quite a lot of issues turning on the slope over and over again. So what I do is I actually set it up just like that. So you can see it's got the optimum marks down the middle there, so between E and F. I go halfway between that and just set 2 angles that are close to each other but not the same. We hit done and that'll save that. And then we're also going to go back into that one more time and I'll rename it. And we're going to name that between driveways. Confirm, like such. Oh, too long. Doesn't like that. How about I go, we'll just go driveways. Driveways, confirm. Not sure how many characters you're allowed to have in here, guys, but not that many as it turns out. Hit save map, and that will save the map to the robot. We're going to quit mapping because we've done what we were going to do. And that is now essentially ready to go as far as mowing is concerned. So I can now hit the mow button and then I can select which areas I want to mow, and it also tells you which order you're going to mow them in too. So you can actually have, so up the top there's got customized mowing sequence, you can turn that off. I think it just then mows in the order that you mapped them. But I can say, okay, I want to do the narrow one first, then the nature strip, and then the front yard, and then press start and it will go and do that. Down the bottom there where it's got clear, progress, and start from scratch, that's if it's been halfway through a mowing session previously. Now the Segway will remember everything it did previously, regardless of what happens. If it gets halfway through a mow and then put it back on the charging station for 3 weeks and then send it back out to mow that area, it'll remember that it mowed half of it and it'll only mow the other half. So that's what that setting there is for. So you can actually click it and say, no, I want you to start from the start and do the whole lot, and away you go. So we hit start there now, and the robot will actually reverse off the charging station and it'll head off and start mowing the narrow strip. Okay, so I'm going to just very briefly go through some of the other settings, only really just things that are related to the actual initial setup. Work from the top down, so mowing schedule. So to schedule the area, we're going to go into mowing schedule. Basically up the top there says whether you're going to enable the schedule or not. Now, so you obviously want to enable it, that's fine. Let's just click on the very first one, Sunday, and then on Sunday at, let's just say it's at 2 o'clock, between 2 and 6. We want to mow all lawns because it says all lawns. We press confirm and that's it. It'll mow all lawns at that time all the way through. You can also, let's go on Monday here, I'll show you. So if we do the same thing, we'll say we're going to start mowing at 10 a.m. and I want to mow for, what's that, 4 hours, and I only want to do the front lawn and the nature strip, and press confirm. And it will show up as a yellow icon in the schedule, which delineates that it's only doing customized areas, not all the areas, just doing some areas, and the orange indicates that it's going to do all areas in that time. So setting up your schedule is super simple. The bottom system down there so the mowing cycle. Now this is to do with whether you want the robot just to keep working, regardless whether it's finished the area or not for a set time, or whether you want it just to mow until it's 100% complete and then go home. So when it's turned off like it is now, the mowing progress in the selected zone reaches 100%, the mower will stop mowing and return to the charging station even if the scheduled time has not finished. So if you've got a really big area and you just want it to sort of finish mowing and then just start again, you don't really want it to go home, because you might have it set for 12 hours a day, say. So say you got it set from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It goes out at 6 a.m. and the previous day it actually got to 95%. It'll go out there and it'll mow the last 5% in the first half an hour, and then it'll go home and sit there all day. So that's why the feature exists. Just allows you to continue mowing, even if it's finished mowing, that gets to 100% progress on that area. If it's still scheduled to mow that area, it'll just go back to the start and start from the start again. Small domestic lawns, you generally want this function turned off. On really large lawns, you generally want it turned on. So that's the schedule, guys. Hit save down the bottom, and that's it for the schedule, and you can save all the way through for whatever days you want it to work. Now, in my my review videos that I'll take further on about the functionality and the performance of the robot, I'll talk about exactly how many square meters per hour the robots will mow, how much they'll get through in a day, just so you can understand what the schedule should actually be set at. The next one down, the work mode. So this is really sort of just speed. The quiet mowing mode, it slows the robot down and also slows the RPM of the cutting motor down. So it just makes the robot a little bit quieter. I think it's about 3 decibels quieter or something. I think it tells you when you click it. Yeah, 3 decibels quieter. It's not much, doesn't make much difference. It slows the robot down. To me, fairly pointless feature. Standard mowing is a standard speed and standard everything, and then efficient mowing, it actually increases the speed of the robot and it actually mows faster. So if you've got big open areas Mowing faster and more often is possibly a better thing for the robot. Again, in the domestic space and doing small lawns, probably not such a big deal. But when you start doing 1,000 square metres up to 10,000 square metres, that becomes a really big deal. So, and we'll get into that in future videos. We'll go back out of there and we're going to go into mowing at night. So mowing at night, which I generally leave enabled because it's I think it's actually pretty cool to tell you the truth. There is a significantly decent headlight on the front of the X Series Segways, and mowing at night is something they really do quite well. As I said earlier, when we're mapping, it does advise you that you shouldn't be mapping in the dark and you shouldn't be mowing in the dark because the positioning system for the vision system doesn't work as well at night. I tend to not see it too much in most spaces. I've even had it mowing down this side down here at night, and it's really not that bad. So, and again, I'll get into that when we get into the performance video. So then we have map management we've already been into, my reports we don't care about. The ELFS is the antennas, so setting up the dual antennas, we'll get into that in another video as well. Vision fence, so the vision fence, there is a channel obstacle avoidance switch, so you can turn it on or off for obstacle avoidance on the channel. Now, I'll be honest, I would have that turned off. And the reason for that is simply that when it's on a channel and it sees an obstacle, it'll see it and just turn around and go back onto the charger and just not mow. Whereas if you've got it turned off, then it'll actually bump into the obstacle, try and work a way around it and get around it. So it tends to work better with it turned off, but really it's much of a muchness. Depends on what your use case is. If you're going to have things in the channels between areas, you're going to have things there that are quite sensitive, then maybe you should have it turned on so it doesn't run over them. Animal friendly, this is a very interesting one. So obviously around the world there are a lot of little small nocturnal animals that are not very friendly against, or the robots are not very friendly with them, but particularly the hedgehogs and things over in Europe. So there's a feature here for turning off or turn around in advance. So basically if it sees something on the lawn, something small on the lawn, it will actually turn around and actually go back the other way, which I think is probably quite a good thing. There's an issue with it though, because one of the features we haven't talked about, and I probably should talk about it now actually, is you have a vision fence off area. Now we haven't spoken about vision fence at all, so let's reverse out of this animal friendly one and we'll go on to talking about the vision fence, which is actually in our area management, or our map management again. So we're going to go into here. I'm going to select our front lawn where the tree stump is. I'm going to go edit. Oh, sorry, I lie. We're actually going to go add more. We're going to go add more, and we're going to do a vision off zone, which is the second from the end one there. So a vision off zone, it's an area that you set on the app, and you place it on your map where the camera system turns off. So why do you need this? If you've got a lawn area that's frequently covered in large leaves and things like that, the vision system will see those leaves and try and go around them. So putting a vision fence over those leaves stops it from going around it and allows it to continue mowing through. There's a few other things that basically it's just anywhere where you want the robot to mow, and the robot is constantly seeing things that it wants to avoid. So it counteracts itself. So you can go through here, and that's another really good example actually is pavers on the ground. So on the screen at the moment you can see where you've got pavers on the ground and there's grass between all the pavers. The robot will see the pavers as obstacles. It'll see the edges of the lawn. Sometimes it'll see the pavement as an obstacle. So these vision off fences do get used, and they get used quite a lot, and I use them a lot too as well, and I'll get into that. I'll actually set them up in a second and tell you why I use them. It tells you how to add them and how to adjust them. So we're going to start here. So what we're going to do on the right hand side there is just add a vision fence, and it just drops it on the screen like that. So what I'm actually going to do here, guys, is I'm going to drag this over here like this. Then I'm going to position it like this. I'm going to shrink it like this, put it down here, bring it out here, and then I'm going to turn it again like this, and then I'm going to zoom in a bit more and move it out like this. So this is actually what I would standardly actually install. Now the reason for that is what I was saying earlier about having the map setting where it straddles over the edge or whether it's hard against the edge. I tend to go with the setting that's hard against the edge, and the reason for that is because the robot will always go to that edge, but what will stop it from getting there is the colour of the concrete or something. If it thinks it's an obstacle, it just won't go there. It'll actually just avoid it because the camera system sees the concrete as an obstacle. So I'll put a vision off area like that on the edge there, which is straddling the edge of the grass and the concrete. And it's basically going to tell the robot to ignore anything it sees in that space, which allows it to go right to the edge every single time. That's how I set up my areas. Now, you can set that same little space up as being, I'm not sure what they actually called it in the app again now, but where it will straddle the grass edge. But I tend to find what happens when you set that is that the robot takes a little bit more liberty than what you give it, and it ends up actually getting quite a long way outside that edge sometimes. And also sometimes it also still sees things as obstacles and avoids them anyway. So I tend to set my edges up on concrete like that. So let me get out of there, guys, and I'm going to go back into that hedgehog setting again, which was in the, where was that? It was in Vision Fence, animal friendly. So what it says there is that when enabled, if the mower detects an animal from a distance, it will turn around and change its path to avoid disturbing the animal. Great. Although this may leave some places uncut, they'll be covered later in the next mow. So it will go along, it'll see something, turn around, go back the other way, and it might leave a little bit of uncut grass there. The next time it mows, it'll mow it. Great, it sounds fantastic. Then there's a little note under there saying, when enabled, the camera sensors will turn on to detect animals. Now, I haven't tested this yet, and I'm yet to confirm exactly what it's going to do, but I would suspect that if you have that function turned on, and then you have vision off fences on your edges, I think the camera will not disable. I think it will still see obstacles, even going through a vision fence. So I'll test it and I'll get back to you to let you know exactly what. If someone else has already tested that and they know the answer to that, by all means, please put a comment below, save me the effort of testing it. But I do think that if you turn the animal detection on, then it might null and void the vision off fences that you might set around the place. So that's the vision fence and the animal detection. Weather adaptive, that's a great one. So weather adaptive basically just looks at the weather forecast online, and you can set rain on like I've got there. So it's sensitive to light rain. No, I don't think so. We'll put it to moderate rain. So basically it's just now going to look at the weather forecast. If it's saying that there's moderate rain happening or about to happen, the robot will go home and charge and stay there until such time as the weather report says it's okay again. It really is that simple. Doesn't get any easier than that, guys. Then there's a little delay down there for how long before it actually goes back out again. At the moment that's set for 30 minutes. So once the weather app turns around and says, yep, it's good, there's no more rain, then the robot will still sit there for 30 minutes before it goes back out again. And you can do that for snow, hot weather, frost, and strong wind. So we might actually go hot weather as well, but it defaults to 35 degrees. That's not a bad number here in Brisbane. It doesn't really often get over 35 degrees in Brisbane. So again, it's looking at the weather forecast. If the weather forecast says that it's over 35 degrees, robot will go home and sit there until such time as it's not. It's going to work pretty well for most coastal areas. Once you get into the centre of Australia, you might want to turn it on again, but you might have to set it to 48 degrees or something like that, because obviously it gets really warm and the robot still needs to do its work. That's weather adaptive. We won't go into smart home traction control. That's definitely one we actually want turned on. So I have never seen this in any other robot. It's the first robot I've seen that's got this sort of thing turned with a system where you can turn it on and off. Most robots probably have, a version of traction control that they can sort of sense the load on the motors to try and get themselves out of a sticky situation. This guy has an actual setting that you turn on for traction control. I have tested this on and off, and it is significantly better with a traction control system on. It really is. It does a really great job. Smart home, we won't get into that. Anti-theft, we won't really get into that. Actually, we probably should touch on that just very briefly. Just the alarm and the geofence. So geofence alarm, this is part of your 4G system again too as well. But you can see there's the property there. Now if we go in here and turn that geofence on, then it puts a geofence around the area, currently set at 20 metres around there. If it goes outside the area, outside that 20 metres, the alarm goes off, disables the robot and sends me an alert. Pretty simple. There's also one for the lifted as well. So if the robot is just lifted, the alarm goes off and it'll send you an alert. And then in Find My Mower, you actually go in here, shows you where the robot is, and you can also sound the alarm manually, and I'll literally, because the robot's just over there. So that's the alarm. So that's me speaking, obviously a normal tone. It's not massively offensive. It will let you know, but it's not huge. It's not going to wake you up in the middle of the night, really, if your bedroom is a fair way away from the robot. Where else are we there, guys? I think that really is it on the installation side. I think the satellite signal analyzer one is another good one that you can just look at. Use this as an indication, guys. It's a great idea. It doesn't give you a lot of great information. In fact, the best thing it does do is the lock time on the top right-hand side there. If you hit that lock time there, you can see it says here that it's actually fast across the top there. So for the time we've used it so far, it's basically said that it locks onto the satellites really quickly. That's sort of the most important thing I find in that area. But obviously the satellites that it's viewing in this screen here, it's great to see it, and it tells you whether you've got a fairly good signal or not, but it's not really fantastic because there's a lot more satellites in the sky than what's actually been shown on that image there. Relocate charging station, if you want to move the charging station, you can do that, and everything else I'm going to leave away. We haven't spoke about software updates because it didn't ask for one when we set it up because it was already updated. If you do want to update the software, or if there's an update for the machine, you go into software update and it tells you what the latest update is, and it will tell you to upgrade it if it needs to. It'll also upgrade itself automatically anyway, so software updates are really simple on the Segway machines. Device management down the second from the bottom, fairly important one, particularly for us as technicians. If you've got a robot that's got any issues, we might actually ask you to share it to one of our accounts so that we can actually see the robot. We'll have the same access that you do to the robot, and you can do that just by going into device management and then device sharing, and then you can actually share it and send it to an email address or another account, which is great. And you can unbind the device there if you're selling the robot. That's it, guys, for installation. I will obviously take other videos on performance and all that sort of stuff. This one's really is more of a bit of a tutorial so you can understand just the basic setup of the robot and the basic functions around that setup. If you have any questions, as always, guys, just send us an email at sales@robotlawnmowers.com.au. You can check out our socials, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and everything on our website. There's heaps of information on our website, guys, so jump on there, www.robotlawnmowers.com.au. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.